Hi guys, have you heard the term a lot lately? Spiritual awakening, woke in our modern day society. Today we're going to talk about signs you might be going through your own spiritual awakening, what a spiritual awakening is, and some common symptoms that you might be experiencing, physical and emotional. Back to my channel. I am Ashley, an empath and a light worker, and I'm here to help you tap into your inner light and intuitiveness to help you lead your best spiritual badass life. So what is a spiritual awakening? There's a lot of definitions out there about a spiritual awakening. And there's not one right way to explain what a spiritual awakening is or a journey because everyone's going to look different. There's some common signs that we're going to talk about, of course, but when it comes down to a spiritual awakening, to me, it's just getting back to our soul, to who we are under the layers of ego, under the layers of us and our human experience. It's getting back to us aligning with the universe and who we really are. To me, it's wanting to understand more, to realize more, and to desire more in our life. And not from just a conscious level, but also an unconscious level, and as a collective whole, as a society. So a spiritual awakening, a lot of people have this misconception that you have to go through something traumatic to experience a spiritual awakening, which is not true. And there's another misconception that you only go through one spiritual awakening in your life. And that's not true. We're always evolving in our human experiences. So we're going to have many spiritual awakenings. No, you do not have to have a near-death experience, but that's a common thing is like, oh, I have to have something really traumatic or go through really something hard to kind of go inwards. For me personally, I started going inwards when COVID hit in 2020. I've always been a really spiritual person. I wasn't raised religious, but I always felt a connection to spirit. I've always felt a connection to other earthly not earthly possessions. I always felt connected to angels, and I always knew deep down that there's more here and that we're all here for a purpose. So I feel like my spiritual journey an awakening has been evolving since I was born, but it's just now coming to light now, and I'm really doing the work now. When COVID hit, it really made me go inwards and realize all these things that I've been kind of taught culturally and conditioned, and I realized that I didn't even know who I was anymore. I've identified with all these things that people have said about me, or I've identified with a lot of my shadow self with anxiety and pain and trauma that I've been through, and those things aren't actually my identity. So that kind of triggered my spiritual awakening, and just kind of trying to deal with everything we're going through in the world right now. You start to question, why am I here? Why am I living through this? Why did I choose to come back and to live through this? And what is the purpose of this? And what can I learn through this? And what is my soul's purpose? So that's what triggered my own spiritual awakening and spiritual journey. Didn't have a near-death experience, nothing like that. So don't think that you can't have one. Anyone can have one at any time. There's no right or wrong way to have a spiritual awakening or awakenings. Going along with that, I think spiritual awakenings and spirituality is becoming so mainstream and modern, which is amazing because we're all kind of coming together as a collective to ascend from 3D to 5D. But at the same time, I also realize, especially social media is a big trigger for me, because there's so many spiritual people that I follow and so many coaches and mindfulness people that you kind of get caught up in the same thing. Am I going through my spiritual awakening right? Am I doing my journey right? Should I be saging every day? Should I be journaling every day? Why am I not doing this? Why am I not starting my coaching thing? And I think the thing you need to remember is nobody knows, nobody knows what a true, there's no guidebook for a spiritual awakening. Okay. So you do you, you do you. And, I'm here to provide guidance and help you kind of make you feel oh yeah, this is what I'm going through, but there is no guidebook. It would be great if they gave us that when we were born, a guidebook to our soul, but that's why we're here, to kind of develop and uncover our purpose. So just know that, follow your intuition and follow your gut and do what you feel is right. So let's jump right into it. Today I'm going to talk about 5 common symptoms, signs that you're going through, not only symptoms, signs that you're going through a spiritual awakening. So let's kick it off. Number 1 is that you start to crave purpose. And we all want purpose. We all want we all want to do something with our lives. But I mean, craving a purpose of why you're here. What is your role here on earth? What are you here to do good, to contribute to the world right now in this time that we're living in? You start to lean into the curiosity side of like, why am I here? How did I get here? What is the meaning of life? You kind of feel like you're kind of going cuckoo because you're like, I know I'll like ask my husband and I'll be like, don't you ever think about these things? And he's like, no. And I was always like this. I had a former job in accounting. I went to school for accounting, got a college degree in accounting. And I was that friend when I was 23, right outside of college, starting to work my 8 to 5 job. And I remember talking to one of my friends and I said to him, who was an accountant at the time too, I said, is this what you want to do? Like, do you feel fulfilled? Like, do you feel fulfilled? And I remember vividly saying, like, do you feel like your soul's like happy? Do you feel like you're doing like this is good? And I remember him saying to me like, oh, you're already at that point in your career. And I'm thinking like, I feel like I've been at that point in my life, like since I was like 12, always wanting to know, like to do more. And that's like the light worker and the empath at me. But it was funny that as soon as I got the degree and I started working, I was like, this is not fulfilling me on a soul level. This is not, I just kept hearing, this is not what I'm here for. And I quit my accounting job 4 years into accounting. So yeah, just kind of like following that, you start to crave like, why am I here? You start to question the purpose and you want more, you desire more for you and for your life. Same time, when you start questioning things, you start to feel confused. You go through like all these emotions through a spiritual awakening, daily, weekly, monthly, by the minute. And the one thing is when you start to really tap into that curiosity side of like, have I been fed lies my whole life? Like, we're so culturally conditioned. Like, does time matter? Does working matter? Does having a job matter? Does money matter? Does government matter? You start to, and then you're like, am I now a conspiracy theorist? Like, am I going off the deep end? Like, am I losing my mind? And you start to kind of play all those scenarios out, and then you kind of start to feel distant from your life of what you knew and like the people in your life too. So you'll definitely experience a lot of confusion as you go through your spiritual awakening. This is normal. Just kind of my advice would be to lean into that curiosity, not obsess over it, but definitely lean into it and start to meditate on those questions that you might have about your soul's purpose. Number 2, your relationships are probably going to change or shift. You're probably going to start to feel like an outsider, which is a hard thing to face as you're going through a big transformation in your life. Not only are you going through this huge transformation spiritually, emotionally, physically, but you're also feeling alone. So it's very, it's hard. It's not easy. So you might start to feel like you're an outsider to your friends or to your family. You might start to go to functions or events and parties, and small talk like just kills your soul. I've always been like that too. I hate small talk. I hate it. Like I hate those awkward conversations of small talk about the weather. I don't want to know that. I want to know like what your meaning in life is. I want to know like what makes you tick. I want to know what you're passionate about. I want to know the trauma you've been through. And I didn't realize that until I started going through my spiritual awakening, that I was like, oh, that's the empath in me. That's the light worker in me. That's my soul's purpose in me. But as you lean into your spiritual awakening, you're going to find that your relationships drift with some people, family members, and friends. You're going to start to realize that some people are just not going to understand. Some people aren't here to go through spiritual awakenings. That's not their soul's purpose, or they're just not going through it at the same time as you are. So maybe you want to talk to your friends and your family and your close people in your inner circle, and they just don't understand what you're going through. So you're going to find a shift with your relationships. And also at the same time, you're going to start to realize like toxic people in your life. You're going to start to realize toxic friends, toxic family members. And then it comes into like, how are you going to deal with that? Like setting boundaries, working through trauma. So it's hard because you also have to maybe walk away for some people just for a little bit. So you can, find as you heal. But you're going to start to notice those people. You're going to start to notice, especially narcissist people. You're going to toxic people that are manipulative in your life. You're going to start to notice more. It's going to come to light. They've always been like that, but now that you're going through this awakening, you're going to just have that awareness of the people around you. Number 3, you're going to be drawn to spirituality. It's going to become a a daily practice for you, whatever that looks like for you. And like everybody's is individually. You're going to be, it's going to be hard to ignore the pull to be spiritual and have that spiritual practice or meditation and to put in the work. So you're really going to notice your pull to that. Same time being pulled to the spiritual aspect, you're going to find that you want to learn more about your ancestors, and you're pulled to meditation and guided meditations and hypnosis and mindfulness coaches. And I firmly believe that your coach will find you through a spiritual awakening. Mine did. I like meditated on it for a while, that I needed somebody, and it was somebody I worked with in the past, and firmly believe that a coach will find you to work with that aligns with your soul. But the more you become pulled to the spiritual side, your intuitive abilities become more apparent. We all are born with intuitive abilities, but they're being blocked by our human consciousness. So the more you go through your spiritual awakening, the more you become aware of your intuitive abilities, which we'll talk a little bit later about the physical symptoms that you might be experiencing. But meditation, wanting to connect to ancestors, spirits, guides, archangels, you start to really connect to that kind of spiritual work, which is so fun to do. Number 4, shadow work. Inner work, which is probably the less fun side of spiritual awakening, I'd say. Not a huge fan of shadow work, but it must be done. I will say that's one thing. I don't think everybody's spiritual journey looks the same, but I think shadow work is kind of a necessity to work through whatever shadow work looks like for you. It's a necessity to work through your trauma and your past, and to heal yourself, to heal your soul and heal past trauma, past lives trauma. So this looks like inner child work. This looks like ego work. This looks like mindfulness and meditation and breath work, ancestor work, kind of digging. It kind of goes through with number 3, journaling, a lot of inner work and a lot of inner healing, self-love. Self-love is what I'm working on right now. That's a big one. I didn't realize that for most of my life, I knew I was a people pleaser, but I didn't know that I'm very negative to myself. So I'm working on being enough for myself and loving myself the way I need to love myself, and showing up for myself, however that is. So that's what I'm doing right now. Part of my shadow work is self-love, but it's working through all those layers of our ego and healing ourselves. It doesn't mean that we're going to be happy 24/7. That's not what shadow work and a spiritual awakening is about. It's not about getting rid of our human experiences, feelings. It's just healing those parts of us that is holding our soul back from our true purpose here in our human experience. Big aspect of shadow work is just becoming aware of your patterns, maybe your destructive patterns, your behavioral patterns that lead to, you feeling stagnant or depressed, or whatever those repressed emotions that you haven't worked through. That's what shadow work is about. It's about finding that awareness and kind of like digging into that and working through those to heal those wounds. Like I said, to allow your soul to be the best version it can be. Number 5, you want to make the world a better place, right? You have this like natural pull now as you go through a spiritual awakening, that you're like, oh, I'm here for a purpose. I'm here for a reason right now. And you start to really dig into that. That goes back to the curiosity and the questioning of like, okay, I know I'm here to do something as a light worker, as an empath, as an intuitive, whatever. You start to get pulled into like a career of, coaching or whatever that is, volunteering for you, or whatever that is to you. You're going to find an outlet to help make the world a better place of what we're living in right now. You realize what you're here for and what your soul's purpose here for, and you start to make your desires your reality. Going through these stages of your spiritual awakening, you might notice some physical symptoms as well. So you might notice that your senses are heightened. Smell, taste, intuitive abilities are more heightened than they were before. You might find sensory overload is real. I've always had this, but I noticed this more during my spiritual awakening. TV bothers me. The volume's always bothered me. Volume. I have a noise something, sensory overload, noise. Light as well bothers me. You might discover that you now have food intolerances that you never had. You could check out intuitive eating. We'll do a video about that later. Your sleep patterns are probably going to be disturbed. A lot of people finally wake up from like 3 to 5, or like sometime during the night they're waking up at the same time. For me, I've always had horrendous insomnia, but now as I'm going through my spiritual awakening, it's just like some nights I know I'm sleeping, but I feel like I got no rest. And my insomnia has gotten worse as I go through like the ups and downs of my spiritual awakening. There'll be weeks I sleep hard, and then there's weeks that I don't sleep at all. Other weird physical symptoms are headaches, frequent headaches, dizziness, vertigo, and like go to the doctor and get these things checked out. But there's ascension symptoms that come and go as you're going through a spiritual awakening. And you'll notice like the dizziness, the brain fog, the fatigue. Some days you'll just feel so drained for no reason and you don't have an answer for it. And the frequent headaches and vivid dreams. You're probably going to start to have a lot of vivid dreams. So you can kind of start to dive into like interpreting your dreams, lucid dreaming, things like that. So there you have it. There's 5 signs that you might be going through a spiritual awakening right now. If you have any of those, please comment below. Let me know what you're currently going through. If you're going through all of them, let me know, especially the physical symptoms. Let me know if you're experiencing dizziness or vivid dreams. I would love to hear about your dreams. Anything like that, please comment below. And as always, if you liked this video, please comment, like, subscribe to my channel. I post a new video every Wednesday, 9 a.m. Eastern.